All right, at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and call the city council work session for Monday, January 26th, 2026 to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mayor King,
Here.
Councilman Niner, Councilman Newberry, here, Councilman Nemo, here, Councilman Newman, here.
Quorum being present, the only topic for discussion is this budget work session number 1.
Great, good evening, thank you for being here. So tonight will be the first of several budget workshops that we're going to do with you all. And really the purpose is to involve the city council earlier in the budget process and kind of get your feedback throughout as we're doing the budget internally. So for each of the budget workshops, staff will give you a brief presentation to provide the background and context necessary for the discussion. And then we'll make sure to leave time for you all to kind of give feedback, ask questions, share your thoughts, and that really helps us as we're developing the budget. So tonight's topic is current year budget update, but first we wanted to start with a kind of budget basics to make sure that we're all on the same page about kind of our fund structure and our revenues and expenditures before we kind of get into the numbers. And then we'll have time at the end for some discussion, so I will turn it over to Amy to talk you through all that.
It's only if people in the room. It doesn't do anything for the mic, for the camera.
Oh, sorry, I don't need it. Okay. As Kristen stated, we'll give you a little like budget 101, kind of how our budget works, and then I will go into our year and estimated projections for this year. So first of all, we operate with a budget this year of $26,800,000, which includes our $16 million general obligation bond. Our budget has to be approved by April 1st every year, statutorily. It needs to be approved by that date. Our policy requires our fund balance to have a minimum of 8%. And we have 16 different funds. We have a general fund, special revenue funds, capital funds, enterprise, debt service, and then the general obligation funds. So the way, I'll work a little bit with our fund structure. The way that the city is set up, we have one cash account or checkbook per se. It's all in one budget, but there are separate distinctions and accounts for each. Statutorily, we are not able to mix some of these funds due to Missouri statutes, and there's a need to keep operational and capital funds separate. We have an accounting system to allow us to report these separately. It's important for our staff, the council, and often the public to understand why we cannot allocate funding from one department to another, or why we have money for projects but cannot authorize additional funding for ongoing services, or more funding for personnel. And consistently, we see the city's budget provide revenues for like one-time projects, but it's hard to keep up with our operational consistency every year. So in this, we have 6 main categories. We have the general fund are the most fluid, and they can go to any other funds, although we don't recommend transferring to the enterprise fund, which is our water sewer fund. The enterprise fund is based on a cost recovery and should operate like a business. So our revenue covers expenses and often set money aside for future improvements in the water and sewer department or fund. We have a debt service fund, which strictly pays out of our debt payments. Not our water and sewer fund, they pay their own debt payments out of their proprietary fund. Then we have capital funds, which pay the majority of our like major improvement projects. And then we have special revenue funds. They are dedicated taxing authorities or revenue sources that are either required or should stay separate. Revenues can only be spent on those types of activities. So some of those are like our public health, transportation, parks, excise tax, park stormwater, special events, and then ARPA. The general obligation fund is utilized to track our expenditures from our 2024 general obligation bond. So the proceeds we received from that goes into our general obligation bond, and then we pay all of our projects out of that fund. So we keep track of it in its own fund. So I just want to give you a little revenue breakdown on how the city's revenue does work. These are our big majority revenue. The city sales tax, which generates, it's 2.75%. 1% goes to our general fund, 0.5% goes to transportation, parks, stormwater, capital improvement sales tax, and then we have the 0.25% pool capital improvement sales tax. These are voters approved sales tax. And then we have our property tax, which is it's calculated on our assessed valuation of each property, and have real estate and personal property. Our levy this year is 1.0927. Which it's broken down on here by the general fund gets 0.3026, that's calculated on our assessed valuation divided by 100. So that's kind of how we can calculate what revenue we do receive in the general fund. Transportation is 0.1134, parks and public health are both the same. And debt service is the one that we come back, and that limit is supposed to help cover our debt payment for that year. With additional, you can cover the year past to like 2 years worth of debt payments. Then you have franchise fees. As you probably can see on your own electric bill, there's a franchise fee line on there. Right now I don't know if it's 5%, but there is a fee for franchise fee on our electric bills, gas and cable and telecommunications. It's for them to have it's a fee for them to be able to use our easement for their utilities. And then we have water sewer rates, which I explained is their own proprietary fund. It's a rates paid where the rates cover the expenses, plus any major improvements in the water and sewer department. Then a little bit of our expenses breakdown. Personnel, which right now we have 46 full-time employees. Within the personnel, it covers our payroll taxes, salaries, benefits like health insurance, work comp, and our loggers program, our pension retirement program. You have operating, which these operating are mainly in our 5 big funds, which is our general fund, one's at personnel. General fund, public health, parks, transportation, and water sewer fund. Within those operating, we pay like building maintenance materials. We pay our utilities, gas, and electric. We pay for all of our street lights in town. We have supplies like salt and sand, mag for the street department. They pay out of their operating. Park maintenance has theirs, like park maintenance for the fields. And then they do have facility maintenance, which actually comes out of the general fund. Then we have equipment repairs and then some vehicle fuel. There's some other operating, but those are some of the bigger items in there. We do have capital, which our bond proceeds is one of our big chunk of our capital items this year. That was for our parks, police, and puppies. And then the water sewer projects, which you guys authorized us to spend in water sewer revenue bonds. So those come out of our water fund, but they are capital items as well. And then equipment like the jetter vac that Tony is getting for the sewer fund is a capital item. Then we have debt, which is our 2024 general obligation bond, which is for the, like I said, parks, police, and puppies, water sewer revenue bonds, and then we have 2 COPs, which are certificate of participation. One's the bleachers, and then we have one from the pool when the pool was built back in 2013. That quarter-cent sales tax is actually paying those debt payments. This slide really just wanted to show you our outstanding debt obligation when they retire, and those amounts actually include principal and interest as well. Okay. So next I'm going to present a little bit of our year-end. It's going to be estimated projections because we still have, of course, 2 months left to kind of spend money or collect revenue. So these are estimated numbers that I've kind of projected out through the end of March. So the first one, a slide that I'm going to present is our budgeted revenue versus our estimated actual revenue. You can see where the third column is the difference. Like our budgeted revenue, our general fund was actually down what I estimated going to be $51,000. That is due to our sales tax is slightly down what I projected, about 0.5%. But then like our property tax is up a couple percent because they did a reassessment year. I think this is year they did a reassessment. So that kind of increases a little bit of our property tax that we receive. And then our interest at the bank where our money is held, the federal government, cut the interest, which is good for some, but with the money in the bank, it cut that interest a little bit. We were making a little bit more when it was 4.5%. Public health is up a little bit. A lot of these are up because our property tax is up slightly. And we did receive nuisance recoupment is up. I can show it on the other side. Nuisance abatement, Missy sends out us if they don't know, things, we send someone out and then we bill them. If they don't pay, then we can take it to the county for property tax, right? Correct. So she submitted, and we actually have received quite a bit this year on the property tax, which is great. So that's why that fund is up a little bit. Transportation, of course, is up as well with the property tax. They do get a statewide motor vehicle tax as well in that fund, so that is up. And then he had a small portion, he sold some millings out of the Public Works building earlier this spring. So that is actually helping him with his renovation of his Public Works building. The parks is up a little bit with property tax, and then they did sell some of their equipment and some supplies from the parks building a few months ago. Water sewer does look like a lot, but this year we received, this was the last water sewer revenue bond, we received $3 million in proceeds. But that will be held for projects. And then we received some money on the sale of that property down there at the Middle Big Creek, so that's in there as well. Okay, this slide will kind of give you a briefing, same way, but it's going to be budgeted expenses versus our estimated actual expenses. The general fund, the columns is different. A lot of that is kind of from salary savings from some vacancy positions for a little while, and the general fund. That doesn't just include City Hall, it includes police, buildings and grounds, court, and then development services. So it's a lump of all those departments. This is salary savings. There were a few one-time expenses that were not completed this year. That you guys approved earlier was the targeted industry analysis, housing study, some employee training, learning management software. With the transition in leadership, those didn't get finished, but this is your, if you guys would like that to be moved to next year's budget, that is completely fine. It's kind of whatever you guys decide you would like to do. Public health is actually up a little bit. The utilities were up due to the new animal shelter. We didn't really know how to estimate their utilities, and we got like the last bill for their gas bill was this month, which was, now it's under ours, so it's a little bit higher than the old animal shelter. So those utilities will be, we'll budget correctly this next year, but that kind of made that up a little bit. And then vet services were up a little higher than what we budgeted. But with nuisance abatement getting higher, that comes out of this fund too. When we pay people to mow the yards for nuisance, that expense was higher than we budgeted, but we did recoup some of that with the property taxes. Transportation fund was down. Some of that, the expenses were down rather from the budget. The salary savings was from a little bit of vacant positions. We did budget in here engineering services for some engineering services on Walker, Kellogg, and Boardman, which Tony could probably give you more detail on that if you guys have questions about those professional fees. We did budget like $350,000, which now I'm putting it back into the fund balance because those probably will not get done this year. And then the first portion of the street signage, we had it divided out between 3 years to redo some of our street signs. So those are things that you guys can decide if you want to move forward and put those into next year's budget.
So that will be when we come into a later budget presentation, like it will be our ask for that, which has happened in the past, like the one that Amy mentioned before. You know, we had some like a housing study was one of the items, like that still is a need. It was just obviously with the transition, I have just not had time to get that, you know, that project done, but it still very much is needed. And so our ask will be that again, without any action, that money goes right back into the fund balance. So there's multiple ways, a couple ways that we can do it, and Amy can explain that once we get there. But you know, just like that, as Tony's project, we talked about when we put it in the budget, we have a need to do engineering for some major road improvements, Boardman, Walker, and Kellogg. Again, that's still a need. We just, with all the other projects and getting through the our P1 and P2 projects, have not had the time to start those projects and initiate them, but the need is still there. So our ask will later then be, whether it goes into the fund balance. I know there's technical ways of how it does, but whether it becomes then restricted so that then, or we come back and ask for a budget amendment to pull it from the fund balance back into the regular spending so that we can still get those done now that we have Kristen on board and, a little bit more time with the other, P1 and P2 projects kind of wrapping up, that we can start tackling those.
The park fund was down expense-wise due to we pay work comp and property insurance. I budgeted a little bit higher. It came in a little lower in that fund than budgeted, and then our contract mowing was a little less than what we budgeted.
Some parks were closed.
That too. Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, we weren't mowing.
Yeah, no,
We were under construction.
yeah, and then the last one, as you can see, it looks pretty high, the water sewer fund. The major improvements were done in this fiscal year in the water fund. Last year at the end of the year, we thought like the 7 highway project and the pump house were gonna be finished by March 31st of 25, but they were not. So that money was budgeted to be spent last year, so it's actually sitting in the fund balance, but they actually spent it this year. It is bond proceeds, but it's still sitting in our bank. So we'll have to do a budget amendment to show that it got moved from last year to this year, because the project kind of lingered on a little bit, or didn't start at the time they're finished when I thought it was going to. Okay, so this slide will show you where we estimate to this year. The goal of the balanced budget is revenue equals expenses. If expenses are higher than revenue, we have to offset with the fund balance. If expenses are less than revenue, then this will add to the fund balance. Any one of these with a negative difference amount in the third column show that we will be utilizing the fund balance. However, I will note that all of these were planned fund balance drawdowns at the beginning of our budget year last year. So many of these are drawing less from the fund balance than budgeted. So we budgeted spending down at the beginning of the year, but technically we're not spending as much. There's still a drawdown on the fund balance, but not as much as you guys budgeted at the beginning of last year. If that makes sense.
So, the little blurb to the side, is that saying that the use of proceeds from fund balance was approved by council
Yes. When we
in 2025?
for the 26 budget year.
Okay,
Yes.
The budget that we're currently in.
okay.
Yeah.
Just
So if you look at
making
the
sure
combined summary, it was showing that you guys approved taking some money out of fund balance to cover some of these one-time expenses or a few others.
I was just making sure that was saying March
Yeah.
31st for the
Yeah.
2026
Yeah,
budget approval,
yes, correct.
not March 31st, 2026.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, because the budget we are currently operating in right now is actually fiscal year ending 2026. So that's the budget, so it was approved in 2025, but it's actually considered the fiscal year 2026 budget.
So overall,
Making sure
I
we do
know.
overall, they all are better than what we actually budgeted or estimated to be. I mean, it's not the actual yet, but. And then this slide, I just wanted to present this slide as an overall fund balance impact from our estimations. Our minimum fund balance, as I stated earlier, is an 8% fund balance. We are significantly higher than that in all of our main funds. Okay, the next slide was capital project status. I came up with there are a couple things that I did miss to put on here, so I did want to reiterate that. Parks and facilities did complete this year. They had, in our capital improvement sales fund, they had a field striping robot they purchased, and they bought fencing for their lot over there by their building. It used to be our old recycling lot, we called it. And then they actually did have $11 million in park funding this year for projects. That, and then the $4.5 million for the facilities for our puppies and our police. Public Works had some projects as well, that normal street overlay. Some of these were from their bond money as well, like the water tower, pump house, 7 highway water line, and then some relining of Country Club and 7 highway. The shop renovation, they're actually in the works right now, doing some work out there. There are a few on here that Tony said they should hopefully be completed at the end of this year. We'll kind of see where we're at. It's still, a couple months away, so. Replacement of fuel barrels in a concrete parking lot. The 2nd Street parking lot is in the works to hopefully bids will go out for that in a few weeks, and hopefully get started by the 1st of March.
Well, the bid's already out.
Oh, it is?
We're just waiting for the
Oh.
weather to break
Okay.
for that project to get started. The 2nd Street parking
Ah.
lot, yeah.
Which one am I thinking? Oh, I'm thinking of the roof one, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
the
the
city
small
hall
roof
roof place on the
replacement.
back,
Yes, I
the bids will be
apologize.
going out, same thing. We'll be pushing it, but we'll be close to being done right there at the fiscal year.
2nd Street parking lot should be done by April, so before the farmer's market starts. Over there is the hope. And then street curbing, which I think is on our council agenda for tonight. And then with some of his bond money, he had some lift station pump replacements he purchased this year. And then the police had a few capital items. They had a fitness room, some patrol rifles, miscellaneous patrol supplies, some MPOA accreditation for their officers, and then some computers. And then of course they have their bond money as well to upgrade their police department. So that's kind of where we're at now, you know.
First, before we jump into this section.
Oh, yes,
Any questions about
It's
what
kind
was
of fast.
presented? It's a lot.
yes, and you can ask, and I can be happy to help cover.
So, when we have the COP for bleachers, would any events taking place using the fairgrounds also go towards meeting that obligation each year?
That actually, that revenue will go into that special events fund since it's there. Now, on one of my slides here, just so you guys know, there's the special events I said in here. The estimated balance is 65. I actually have in the fund balance restricted amount in that fund to cover the next year's debt payment. Just so we're, you know, we have the year, in their budget this year, they're gonna have expenses, they're gonna have that debt payment in there. But then I want in the fund balance that we will cover the next year out of that fund as well. So they will always be, hopefully, 2 years worth of payments, you know, covered.
Right.
Good.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we can move on to the council feedback section of this workshop. So really the questions that I have proposed tonight, and we can stray outside of these questions, so I just thought these would be good starting points for us to get talking, is really to help us make sure that we're building a budget that meets your priorities and the things that you're interested in funding next year. So I have 3 questions up here, and you can take them one at a time, or, you know, one person answers all 3, however you really want to do it. But the questions I wanted to go over were, 1, what do you care most about preserving? So really what I mean by this is, what are we doing really well that you want to make sure that we continue that adequate funding for? So if you're thinking, our police department's doing great, make sure that if we have a bad budget year that we don't cut there. You know, that's kind of what this question is getting at. Which services do you want to make sure that we preserve at their current levels? The second question is, what service areas do you care most about improving or addressing? So if we have a good budget year, where would you like us to start directing funds to help improve service areas? And then the last question is, if you could have your top 2 priorities for the budget year that we could try to fit in there, what would those be? So you can take a few minutes to think about it if you want, but these are just kind of things that I think will help us make sure that we are putting together a budget that fits what you're looking for. So I don't know who wants to go first or how you want to handle it, but Mayor, do you want to kick us off?
So, preserving. One of the issues that we ran into previously was we spent a lot of money on a pool, and there were some things that didn't occur, that caused additional maintenance and problems. We have a lot of infrastructure improvements in public works and in parks. I think that money needs to go into making sure that we are addressing and taking care of issues to those improvements first. I want to say first, as a priority. I think if we have shortfall, unfortunately that doesn't leave a lot of room, but critical infrastructure has to be protected in those areas. Where we have spent money, parks, public works, law enforcement, those are critical services. We've got to keep those maintained. Again, that doesn't leave a lot of area to cut from, but in my opinion, that's just the hard truth. We have to preserve those. If we have more money, I'm not sure which world that's in, but if we have more money, then it needs to go about strengthening, to me, all the departments. Making sure admin has the people they need taking care of the people we have. Parks can use people, public works can use people, law enforcement needs people. That's a whole lot of pie to try to share that money in. I just think we need to prioritize in there what that means. I don't have that answer tonight.
Yeah.
But that's where, to me, the priorities need to be, and for me, that covers our top priorities in the upcoming budget. Keeping what we have, making sure we're taking care of what we have, and figuring out how we're gonna do more with what we got. Sean, I know you got stuff you'd like to do with sidewalks.
Well, yeah. I would love to get all of the sidewalks in Pleasantville.
Connected
Safe.
and repaired?
Yes. And I just wanna say that I actually saw the house that used to be blue and now it's yellow on 7 Highway. Those little people were shoveling their little sidewalks and I just wanted to go, thank you. But, yeah, sidewalks, I definitely, but to preserve, I agree with the mayor. All of the money that we have put into the infrastructure and the parks and rec, I want to see those to be preserved. Improvement, yes, sidewalks, streets, but that's kind of all part of the infrastructure, but something else I would like to address is the use of, all of our facilities that we rent out. The memorial building could really need some kitchen stuff, because let me tell you, I had to cook for 100 people in that kitchen and it sucked. But just improving that and making sure, I love that we give discounts to the nonprofits, but we still need to get that 50% to help to address that. So yes, between sidewalks and improving our facilities would be my most improving and addressing. And 2 top priorities for the upcoming budget. I've actually been curious about the vehicles that we rent, the lease program. I'm interested in knowing a little bit more detail on that for the upcoming budget.
Anything else?
No? I mean, I'm sure there is, but that's
Well,
all I can think
in
of
the
right now.
moment, yeah.
Jackie, you're up.
I know. Where are we at on the sidewalk?
As in what?
I mean, like,
We have no money for sidewalks.
but we're doing them, right?
We're doing, we're doing
Yeah.
small, short sections.
Sections.
Huh.
Pine,
Okay.
that was the one that was up there.
I mean, I just do, how short, I mean,
I don't know that we've ever, I mean, and again, this is maybe something that council would want to consider. You know, sometimes you go through, and we've done it in the past, and Tony might be able to answer this better, like, we'll do like a street analysis, and you basically say, like, they'll go through and grade the streets and say, like, you know, and that sometimes puts them together like a street improvement plan to say, you know, we need to spend, you know, $500,000 a year to be able to tackle, you know, the worst streets and, you know, yada yada. There are ways you could do like a sidewalk analysis as well that says, okay, you know, we have X number of feet of, or miles of sidewalk that, you know, are graded at, you know, a C or below, whatever it might be. And then again, you would put together a program to say, like, okay, here's what we have. It would take $100,000 a year to tackle this over a 15-year period or whatever it is. I mean, we have the ability to, you know, I'm not gonna say, I don't wanna use the word guess because I feel confident in Tony's skills and abilities, but to say that, you know, we have X number of, you know, miles of sidewalk, again, it would need to hear from council though, what is your priority? Is it sidewalk replacement? Is it sidewalks in areas that we don't already have sidewalks? Like, you know, what is that? And then we could probably put together a really calculated, you know, amount to say like, we need
We can make an educated guess.
an educated guess, yeah, you know, cause right now, and it's slipping me, are we at 50,000? Is that what we allocated this year for?
It was
25, oh, okay, sorry, see, I was wrong. You know, for Pine Street, so, you know, I mean, it goes back to that, you know, obviously for a while, we kinda did that, we're gonna spend X number of, you know, thousands of dollars for streets every year, and, you know, sidewalks is not always, I mean, you know, it's tough, but,
Do we have homeowners questioning or requesting?
Yes,
Yes.
I mean, yes,
yes,
I don't hear a lot. at
I've
least
heard a
on my
handful
side,
in the
But
2 years I've been here, so.
Well, I think what's hard, and forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I think our current policy is that homeowners are supposed to maintain the sidewalk, so we do also have, you know, some work to do on what our policies are going to be, or is it going to be on the city, is it going to be on the homeowner, and if it's on the city, then I think really a sidewalk improvement program would be necessary.
Make sure we have all that information.
Right.
Cause I wonder how many homeowners don't even realize that.
There is, I can tell you from 2 that I've been involved in with HOAs and homeowners, most people don't understand how sidewalks maintenance works and how that goes on. You get people that don't want sidewalks because they're afraid that if someone trips and falls on it, that they're going to be sued. What they don't understand is if they're walking in your yard and you don't have a sidewalk and they trip and fall, you can also be sued because it was on your property. It doesn't matter whether it was on grass or something. I think that an area that, and I don't know, this is for staff to figure out if it can even work, is there are at least 3 HOAs that have looked at improving, connecting, finishing sidewalks within their HOAs. I don't know if there's a way that the city can work with those HOAs, try to find ways that can help them get that done at their cost. I mean, we got HOAs sitting on a lot of friggin' money out there that can afford to do it, but there's always that, well, you know, rainy day, what if we need that money later? And I don't know if we can get them with people to reduce their costs to get them to do that, or NIDs are the way to go, I don't know. But if we can get some of the HOAs that have money to improve the sidewalks in their HOA, then we can use city money to improving and getting sidewalks in the areas that don't have HOAs.
Well, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on Country Club, going off 7 Country Club, there isn't a sidewalk.
On one side,
On one side.
On one side.
On the right-hand side there is?
south side.
Wait,
On the
South
south
side.
side.
No,
North
north
side
side.
is,
But then it-
It's
you
switches.
can't go on
It
switches.
switches.
Okay.
all the way down, we have to go across.
Yeah, it crosses.
But ultimately, there's now a sidewalk on Country Club from 7 Highway all the way to Hickory Hills Drive.
Well, and the reason why I was bringing it up is because
I was gonna say not.
No,
completely,
it's-
Oh, yeah,
because there's
it's-
Lexington, there's
that's
a
right.
gap there.
So really, it's Eklund.
yeah.
Yes, it'd be, so
Because
there's
of
a
the
short
schools.
section from 7 Highway to Lexington, and then there's a gap to, Eklund.
Yeah.
There's a sidewalk all the way down. Yeah, there's a sidewalk all the way down. On the north
Yeah.
side, yeah, either way, you have a country club all the way to.
Correct. Sorry,
Yes.
On
yeah,
both
so it's, yeah,
It
Lexington,
is just on the north side.
and then it cuts back over.
What were you asking?
I don't know. No, I'm teasing. Well, I was just referencing it because of all the school walkers
Yeah.
there.
And walkability is is typically an important, asset for when people are looking for a community that they want to move to, you know? I mean, I think historically, anybody is gonna probably comment on their ability to, you know, safely, you know,
Right.
use alternative modes of transportation other than just, you know, driving.
Right.
Which wasn't always a priority of what I'm gonna call like your, not suburban, but kind of, you know, communities further out, because again, I mean, when you're obviously in a well-dense, you know, downtown metro area, you know, people sometimes walk for, you know, main roads, but it is still it is typically what comes up when people are looking for a quality of life.
Right.
How do, you, like, on Pine, and I think is that Armstrong, that corner?
Yeah.
Why, no one lives there, why are you putting curbs in there? Is it a drainage thing, or? I know that's what Michelle broke her foot, her ankle. in
Yeah,
that
cause
area.
that area is terrible for washing out, and if we can get it at least down to Pine and get that cleaned up, then we have another step towards our stormwater improvements. Yeah, that area right there is a mess.
I think
Did you
for-
have anything?
I'm still thinking.
Okay,
My,
yeah.
my brain's still kinda, I'm trying not to ask a stupid question.
No such thing. No.
Cause I just, I mean, there was no one complaining, I just heard a conversation that saying, well, we need more sidewalks closer to schools, and I was thinking, well, we have them, but the only ones that we really, and it's because of the older, Country Club's one of the older streets. And I think just on that one side, isn't it, that we don't have?
Yeah, because that was completed as part of,
It was one of our projects, Glenn.
it was a MoDOT project. I mean, we had some federal funding when we did the additional sidewalks on Country Club. So yeah, I think we're now just down to that small section between 7 Highway and Lexington is all that doesn't have it on one side or the other. It's not on both sides, and it's
Correct.
not always on the same side,
Correct.
the whole length, based on elevation challenges and things, utilities and stuff like that. But, I mean, so to that point though too, I mean, you all, up to this point have prioritized some sidewalks. You know, we did apply for that TAP
Right.
program, for the Lexington sidewalks. Obviously, that wasn't initially funded. Since then, we got the feedback, you know, to do the TEAP, the Traffic Engineering Assistance Program, which we did. And so we've, that's $15,000 to do some preliminary engineering, which they told us basically like helps you gain more points the next time. You know, if it's you all or a future council is still prioritizing that, we would have more points, you know, when we were to maybe file that grant application again. But, you know, we, you know, it honestly was shocking that, when we had applied for TAP, we, during the public comment portion, that's again, a part of the points, our feedback, the positive feedback on that our residents put on to try and gain us some, was way more than any of the other projects that were out there. But again, we still fall short on the number of points, and that's probably a conversation for a different day, just the way that the point system is structured. But ultimately, even on tonight's council, we have the agreement with our engineers to move forward with that project that you all had already authorized. So again, we're making baby steps if
Right.
anything, on certain, you know, areas.
I haven't
But
heard about it complaining.
sure, no,
At
but
all.
it's still, I think, yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, a priority, and I mean, you know, walkability is.
Right. Well, and seriously, how many kids really do walk to school anymore? I mean, there's not that many. I mean, there are less than there have been, because there's a brother and sister that's driving, and the buses go more places than they used to go, I mean, like that, so. But I was just curious about that.
So we used, just so you know, historically, we used to, like most cities, required people to put sidewalks in on both sides of the road.
Right.
And like anything else, trends change, and cities found that it was overburdensome to have that much sidewalk. It creates more work to have to make repairs and upkeep, And it kind of went to a one side of the road or the other kind of a thing, and most communities have done that.
Yeah.
I assume it's gonna be like traffic lights versus traffic circles. At some point, the
Right.
engineers will say, let's go back to this, and, but yeah, I don't remember when that was though. That we made that change here, so.
What's that?
Went from sidewalks on both sides to one side.
Actually, just with the new UDC.
I thought we did before that though.
No, it's always been on both sides.
Has it?
Mhm.
We talked about that, so.
It's just with the new UDC and it depends on the street type
Gotcha.
and the neighborhood development type.
Okay.
I was just looking at it, that's all.
Just seemed like forever ago.
I feel like the, replacing what needs to be fixed or making what's not safer is a priority, and I think that might encourage people to want sidewalks if they are not worried about them breaking and falling apart, and that's what they're saying is, I don't want to take care of that, so I just feel like trying to improve what we already have that needs repair before putting in new stuff is more of a priority to me. And then the homeowners that don't have sidewalks now, if you put sidewalks in there, you need to make sure somebody's taking care of them. If they're too, I mean, there are a lot of elderly people who live on Lexington, so that's what I'm, like, there's no way they can go shovel sidewalks. But at the same time, I can see why it would be needed. There's a school that direction, and they decide to, I get it, but at the same time, I think that citizens need to weigh in on what they have to take care of, I guess.
Brenda, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about for the three?
No, that's pretty close to, I mean, the sidewalks and preserving what we have and improving what we have, preserving what we have. Those types of things are important and definitely need to be addressed. I've said it before because I would like to have lights that I'm not worried about falling on people, street lights. But at the same time, they don't have, I mean, that's mostly downtown. And if we can get grants to do that, that would be much better. I don't think that should be on our budget. I think we need to work on some grants too. Maybe grants would be something we could use, we could start looking at. I don't know who does that. I'm not a writer, you don't want me writing anything.
We do have something to add. Okay, so the city, we currently work with a grant writer, we have under contract, so, Shelby was doing that when she was here, and I was helping along with that as well, and then since she's left, I've taken it on, and Chris and I actually just had a conversation, so, we actually meet every single Monday, so we are actively pursuing grants. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're, small. She's constantly working, we have projects, we still have a small section of trail out by the city lake that still has to be finished. That is one that we're actively looking for grants on. I'll be honest, while it sounds, everybody says like, let's just get a grant, it's not just as easy as like, let's go find a grant. So like right now, honestly, we're working on one, that is a historic preservation type grant because we've got some work to do on the windows at the depot, and we had a little bit of money from a small UP grant, but grants in like large massive amounts are just it's a little bit more challenging. Typically those are more like your foundational type things, and she is super knowledgeable, and so it is something we do look at for almost every project that we try to see if there's something there that we can get. Even like last week, we worked on one for $800 that we found for some native grass planting. So we have some areas in our new parks that we purposefully planted native grasses to help as, one of the priorities during that was trying to keep, the amount of maintenance that we have to do as minimal as possible, just because we know that that's where we have some challenges is with staffing. And so we did do some areas that were purposefully just native grass plantings. And so we found a grant, I mean, it wasn't much, it was $800. We look to try to do that to, again, to add to those areas to make sure they're, full and all of those things. So it can be big things, it can be small, but, to sit here and tell you, like, there's a grant out there for us to go do town renovations, not typically to the amount of what that infrastructure project is gonna, cost. I had actually sent Kristen a link right after we had that conversation, because Blue Springs is getting ready to take on, the city of Blue Springs is getting ready to take on their downtown renovations, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's not, you might get one for some streetscape or some, landscaping, but to actually do the full-blown, infrastructure improvements, it's not just as readily available. I mean, but again, not something that we're still always looking for those. But yes, you are right though, in the, like, streetlights are infrastructure. I mean, it's actually what I would consider critical infrastructure too. So those are something that we're gonna have to address, as we know, that we do have some needs there as well.
Unfortunately, one of the truths about grants is when you start talking about major infrastructure improvement grants, two things have to happen. One is you have to be able to show that you can do the project without the grant. That's what they want to see. Is that you have the means to complete that grant if you don't get it.
Or you have to match it.
Or you have to match it, because too many cities, fire departments, police departments, all those kind of taxing entities have gotten grants and then had to have that money pulled back, or they got sued because they spent the money but couldn't complete it. And so they don't want to create those problems. I don't remember who was on council, but what's the water association that comes in here?
Missouri Rural Water, MRWA?
That might have been them. They came in and
Yeah.
did the talk about our rates and where we were in comparison. And one of the things they said, to get a federal grant to help with our infrastructure, we would have to triple our water rates
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
to get that grant.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to triple everybody's water bill, including my own, just to get $1 million. You gotta have money to get money, unfortunately. And that's the world we live in now. So, that's one of those things. We just have to be able to show that we can do these projects and then get the grant, apply that money, and then use that money in other places. And that makes it much harder.
Okay, well, with that, I think in summary, what I'm hearing from you all is that the number one priority is ensuring that we maintain the improvements that we just made and that we have done. And I think that we are in agreement with that that's a really important thing to do moving forward, so we didn't just spend all that money to watch it deteriorate. And then sidewalks. So I think those are really great priorities for us to start with, and each of these workshops, we can kind of revisit these questions, and as we get more information as we go, see if, your priorities change, or if you have new ideas, that sort of thing. So, lastly, these are just some things that we're gonna talk about in future work sessions, and then knowing that the budget has to be approved by March 31st. So, next work session, we'll kind of talk about where we're seeing revenue coming in that we think will be for next year, that we can build our base budget, and then we can kind of have a better idea of, are we working with a budget that we need to cut, or are we working with a budget that has a little bit of wiggle room to kind of implement some priorities without cutting in other places. Anything else that we want to address?
Were your sidewalks just for specific areas or
Just in general.
just in general?
Okay.
When we had distributed the original budget calendar, for this year, it did include a special budget work session, next Monday, right? Are we still on track? Do we think we need that? Do we want to? We'll get back to you.
I think so, but we just want to revisit it and make sure that our timeline.
Okay.
So. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn the work session.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn.